So we're trying to hold dice. And it says here, review the teacher's code on how one might approach holding the dice so that the dice aren't re-rolled. Take what you've learned from the example code and apply it to your own code. First, change the test program to ask the user up to 3 questions. Do you want to change which dice you want to hold? If yes, which dice do you want to hold? And then after rolling, ask them also ask them if they want to roll again. You want to change the dice class so that it keeps track of which dice is held when you're re-rolling. So we don't have the ability to do that yet. So we're going to add a hold array to the dice class to keep track of this. So the dice will keep track of which dice are being held right now and which ones aren't. And then I have code I want to show you about that. And then here's the actual dice roller assignment. So the assignment says create a Yahtzee dice roller using text-based user interface. Users should be able to roll 5 6-sided dice. After the first and second roll, users should be allowed to hold some of the dice so that they do not change when rolling again. After the third roll, the dice cannot be held, nor will the user be allowed to roll again. Users must reset in order to initiate a new set of rolls. The option to reset should be available after the first roll. So we're going to have to keep track of which roll they're on, because in Yahtzee you get 3 rolls. Sometimes you use all 3. Sometimes you just use the first one. Say the first one you roll is a Yahtzee. You're not going to roll again. You got a Yahtzee already, right? So the screen, at least on the part where it's showing you what was rolled, should look like that. Okay. All right, so let's go look at that code. And I'm going to give you some hints. And I'm recording this, so hopefully this will help. I'm going to go to Replit. We're looking at Dice Tester. All right, so here's my main method. I'll zoom in a bit so we can see it a little bit larger. And this is what I've changed. Basically, this part hasn't changed. So I start out by creating a scanner, and then I create my set of dice, and then I create 2 answers now. I'm asking 2 questions. So I have answer 1 and answer 2. I don't know if it sets both of them to N. I would assume that it does, but I'm not sure. And then I have this thing called a hold string. We were talking about strings in Java 1. Well, we're going to be using them here. And the hold string, you just type in what die number you want to hold. So if you want to hold the first 3 dice in your set of dice, you would say 1, 2, 3, and that will hold them. And so when you re-roll, it's not going to re-roll those numbers. So the first thing you ask is, do you want to change the held dice? Well, that's not going to work in the long term. For now, that's going to work. But remember, on the first roll, you can't hold dice on the first roll. You haven't rolled yet. So this question will have to be controlled by the roll number. But we don't have that yet. Then we get that input. We're waiting. We've asked the user, do you want to hold the dice? They say no, let's say. But if they say yes, say they do say yes, if answer equals yes, then say enter the die number to hold. That should be die numbers, because you can put more than 1, I guess. And then if you want to clear them, say you don't want to hold any of them, you can put in a 0. I was trying to just use a blank line. So if they put in blank, that means we're not going to hold anything. But this input doesn't work with blanks. It'll just stay right here, and you'll never get out of there. So you have to put something in. So I figured 0 is a good one, because we're not using that. And that's how we clear all the holds. Say we want to, first roll worked and we tried it again, but on the third roll, I'm just going to re-roll. You put a 0 in there for that. So if the hold string is 0, or the hold string equals 0, if that's what we got back, then what I want to do is just empty it. Because really what should only have in it are numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then once I have the hold string, I just send that to the dice, and I say, okay, set this up so that for those die numbers that are in this hold string, set those as held before you roll. And that's only if they want to change it. If they want to keep the same ones, a lot of the times you roll say you've got 4 4s and a 5. So you you hold the 4 4s and you roll the 5. You didn't get the 5, so you're going to just use the same one over again. Didn't get the 5, or you didn't get the 4 again. So a lot of times you keep the same ones held. So I didn't want you to have to type it in every time. So I asked the question, do you want to change it? You set the held thing and then you just roll and then you print out what you did. And the print, this is what you should have coded yesterday. And then you ask them if they want to repeat. And if they do, if they say yes, then you go back up to the top. Say no, then you close the input stream and the program's done. Okay. How does that work in reality? So here's my, I'm just going to run it for you so you can see it. It says, do you want to change the held dice? I'm going to say no because this is my first roll. Here's my first roll. I've got a 4, a 3, a 5, and 6, and a 3. Well, I already have a small straight, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to save, I'll say yes, I want to repeat. Do I want to change the held dice? Yes, this time I want to change it. Enter the die numbers to hold, 0 to clear. Well, I want to save 1, 2, 3, and 5. So I say 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay. Those are the dice positions, right? I'm trying to say save 1, 2, 3, and 5 because that's my small straight. 3, 4, 5, 6. What I'm trying to get is a large straight. So I'm trying to get this number 4 to actually switch to a 2. And then I would have a large straight, which is a little bit harder to get. So let's try it. And I look and I want to make sure that 1, 2, 3, and 5 didn't change. Notice like they didn't. But 4 didn't change either. That could have just been lucky or unlucky, I guess. I say repeat. Do I want to change the held dice? I say no. I want to hold the same ones I held last time. So I'd say no here. What is that? Okay. Yeah. And see here, that fourth one did change. Still 1, 2, 3, and 5 didn't change, but the fourth one did. I didn't get my 2. So then I would use this for my small straight. This is my third roll, so that's the only chance I get. Now I say repeat, yes. Change the held dice. I would say yes this time because I'm starting over, but we're going to take care of this once, we're going to have a reset button or something, a reset command, which will allow them to re-roll. I'm going to say, yeah, I want to change that. And I want to clear it because this is my first roll. So here's a new roll. And notice too now that, well, looks like dice 2 changed. Dice 1 and 3 didn't change, which is a little bit concerning, but that could have just been lucky. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Just make sure to check out using the QR code. So I probably want to keep my 5s here. So I say yes. I change the held dice. I say yes. And I'm going to say 2, 3. I want to hold those 2. Yeah, I got another 5. So die 4 came up as a 5. So this is my third roll. I'll say yes. I want to repeat. I want to change my held dice. Yes. Now I want to save 2, 3, and 4. So even though I held 2, 3 earlier, I have to restate them here because I'm making a change. And I'm hoping to get another 5. So I can get a 4 of a kind, which is better than the 3 of a kind. And I did. Look, I got another 5. So now I can use this for my 4 of a kind roll. And I can actually play Yahtzee with this. Okay. It's not done yet because we'd like to put in the limitation on you can only roll 3 times per turn. So we're gonna have to keep track of turn numbers. It'd be nice to put what turn number they're on so they can see that. And now we have a set of dice that we can use to play Yahtzee. Eventually on Tuesday next week, what we want to do, especially for the seniors, is actually use our program to play Yahtzee. So I'll have Yahtzee score sheets, and we can play Yahtzee with our Yahtzee dice thing, and play a real game of Yahtzee with it. If I don't want to play anymore, I just say no, and then the program's over. Okay. So all of that's going on in here in this main method. So what did I have to change? Well, I had to add quite a bit to the dice class and kind of move some things around. So I'm going to go over what those changes are right now. So if you're in Java 2, I'd turn your ears on because this is important. Who's missing from Java 2? I'm trying to think. Mason's here. Who else is in Java 2 in our class? Usually here. Trying to think. Well, Philip. Yeah, Philip's not here today. Okay, so let's look at the dice class because that's where I had to make most of the changes. First thing I had to do is I added a new instance variable that's here, and it's our hold array. And all it is it's an array of booleans saying whether or not the dice is held or not. So that's important to include in where you have your other instance variables down near the bottom of your class. You got to do that. And then since we added an instance variable, we have to go to the constructors and we have to add that in. We have to initialize those instance variables in the constructor. So in the default constructor that takes no parameters, then we're just going to null it out just to make sure that it's not set to anything. But the one we're using is this one. And notice that I had to add this. That's to allocate the array. So make space for that array in memory. There's 5 booleans there. And remember, a boolean is just true or false. So I created an array of booleans and called it the hold array. And then I initialized the hold array. Here, the roll array, yours is going to look a little different. It probably just says dice or die, I guess. No, it would be, yeah, it would probably be die class. Mine is a little bit different. But this is the line you need to add. When you're initializing the dice, you also have to initialize the hold array. And you want to start it, all of them being false. So that's one change. Now inside the roll method, obviously you don't want to be rolling if it's supposed to be held. So I added this if statement in here to say, hey, is it held or is it not held? If it's not held, then roll it. If it is held, then don't roll it. Okay, because you don't want its value to change. So here, the hold array, you go and index into it. If it says true, that they want to hold it, well, not true is false, which means it won't do anything. Okay? So I could have said if hold array sub I equal false. Okay, but programmers, especially program professors in college, really hate that. It's already true or false. You can just flip this. Sometimes you want it true, sometimes you want it false. So if it's false, you just say not. If it's true that you want, then you just don't put the not there. Okay? So if it's not supposed to be held, then roll it. If it is supposed to be held, then don't roll it. It doesn't do anything. See, there's no else. So, and so that's the only change I made to the roll method. Roll die doesn't change. If you do have a clear method, I doubt you do, but if you do, when you clear the roll array and set all the values to 0, it's probably a good idea to clear the hold array as well. But again, I doubt you have this method. I don't think that's in anywhere. This is just my version of the dice class. So here's the print method. I'll go through this slowly so you can see it all. Maybe let me zoom out a bit. Yeah, so there's your print method. So that's the one that prints out all the dice on the screen. Let me just walk through it really fast. So I have this in I use everywhere in these loops. Since we're printing horizontally rather than vertically, we have to print one stripe at a time. It's kind of strange. First thing I want to print is these dice position numbers. So what I do is I just check the index, I add one to it, and just put some spacers on either side to get them to print for the number of dice you have. I want this to work all the way up to like 9 dice. If you wanted to have 9 dice, you could do that. So you do that first line. That's the first line. And then these are all print statements. So in order to go advance to the next line, you have to put a print line in there. And then notice here that the top and the bottom of the dice are the same. See that? So what I did is I factored that out, and I wrote a little private method to print out the top or the bottom. It's right here. Notice it's private. I don't want this to be able to be called from outside, only inside. Okay. This is not to be called from the outside. This is just a helper function for this thing. So you're not copying this code twice. You do it once and you call this method. Again, you just iterate through all the dice and you put a little box top plus a space at the end. You do that for the number of dice you have, and then you print out the carriage return, so you go to the next line. So that will work on both the top, or printing the top, and then printing the bottom here. They're the same. The code's the same. So why? Anytime you see code that's exactly the same and you repeated it, that's a good indicator that you need to factor that out and make it into its own method, and then just call that method. Make your code smaller, and then if there's a bug in there, you fix it in that method, and it's going to fix it everywhere it's used, not just in that place that you copied over and over again. So if you find yourself doing this when you're coding, copying code and not changing it, that's a bad sign. You should make that code that you just copied into a method, a private method perhaps, that only other methods in this class can call. And then to print out the actual die value, you have to put the size of the die there plus a space. And then you just go and get that die value, passing in the index. Notice that you have to be careful here because the indexes are from 0 to 4, but on the screen for non-programmers, they're numbered 1 to 5. So you have to adjust for that when you're translating back and forth. You print out the bottom, and then you do a print line, and now you've printed out all of the dice. This should work for any size dice and any number of sides as well, right? So say if I had 3 27-sided dice, it would still work. Probably not very well. What the assumption is that the digits are all just 1 digit long. So the largest you could do with this is probably 9. As soon as you got to 10, when it prints out the 10, it's going to mess up the dice pictures. If you really want to make like 100-sided dice, then you assume that each die would be 3, or each die's value would be 3 characters, and then make the boxes accordingly. But we're just using 6-sided dice here. So this will go from, you could have 9 9-sided dice and still have everything working here. You do a 1-sided dice. What's a 1-sided die? Is there such a thing? You always roll a 1. What good would that be? And how can it only have 1 side? What shape would it be if it was 1-sided? A sphere, that's right. Yeah, you'd always roll a 1 and be stupid to roll. What about 2-sided die? What does that look like? Yeah. Yeah, so flat, so maybe a coin, right? That's a 2-sided die, basically. So you flip the coin, there you go. 3-sided is weird. You have to think about that one. Because remember, a die has to have the same probability of rolling any of its sides. So on a 3-sided die, how do you do that? The only one I can figure out is it kind of looks like a football or like a banana, but it has 3 sides on it, and then you roll it kind of sideways. And that would be your 3-sided die. 4-sided die is just a pyramid. Problem is the number you need to see is on the bottom. You look at it after you roll it, I guess. And then there's other different types, but this should work for 9-sided, up to 9 9-sided dice. I think this dice should work. Let's print apart, okay? And then here's where I added that hold array. So we've already talked about that. The only other thing I added was this one, but I wonder if I really needed it. Yeah, here, set held. So yeah, this is an important one. So they pass in the hold string. You ask the user for the hold string. And I said, well, why don't we just take that hold string into the dice class and then parse it out here to figure out what they want to hold. So I have this string called digit. It's going to just have a single character in it. And then notice I'm going from 1 to 5 instead of 0 to 4. Why am I doing that? It's because that's the way they're numbered on the screen, I guess. And that's what we're expecting the user to type in from 1 to 5. So what I do is we just talked about this in Java 1. I take that I, which is an integer, that index, convert it to a string, and then store it in digit, which is a string. And then this is where it gets this is super fancy coding right here. I'm avoiding an if statement, but I'm saying grab that digit to see if the hold string contains that digit. If it does, then store a true in the hold array for that dice. Notice I'm subtracting 1 because, again, these are 1 relative, and our hold array is 0 relative, so I have to adjust for that. Now, if the digit's not in the hold string, that means they didn't hold it, then it's going to set a false in that, right? Because this returns true or false, returns true or false. If that's false, then it's not going to hold it, and it's going to be rolled again. So a really, really nice piece of code there, because you're doing a lot in one line of code. You're taking the digit, you're searching to see if it's in the hold string. If it is, well, it'll say true or false already. So you can use that to store right in our hold array, because that's a Boolean array and it has true or false in it. So a lot of people would have written an if statement and say, if this is true, then store a true there. And if this is false, then store a false there. No, just do it in one line. Okay. So that's all the changes you need to make to the dice class. Now, your dice class might look a little bit different set of methods in it, but these general ideas are all still the same. And so set held, where does that get called? It gets called here, right before you roll. If they said they want to change it, then you reset it based on the hold string they typed in. If they say they didn't want to change it, or it's empty, you can just roll. And then now you could actually play Yahtzee with this. It's still not Yahtzee ready because we have to do the number of rolls still, but at least we can show it on the screen and we can hold dice. And that was the goal for today.